Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with a brand new TV review, and today we're discussing the first 3 episodes of Apple TV Plus Dickinson Season 2. Really excited to let you all know what I thought about it, and if you should check it out in this review. But before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which you can find all those links in the description below. If you are new to the channel, welcome to this community. Consider subscribing, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert when I drop new content. It would mean a lot to me if you all can like and share this video. It really helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate all the support. And in the comments, let me know, number 1, if you were a fan of the first season of Dickinson, and then more importantly, we're talking season 2. So let me know your thoughts of the first 3 episodes, your pros, your cons, and if you're excited for the weeks ahead. Let's have a discussion about it in the comments below. So for me personally, I was a big fan of the first season. I did review the entire season on this channel, so check it out. I do like that this time around, the first season, it was all bingeable. I know some people probably want that to happen with season 2, but no, season 2, we only got the first 3 episodes, and then every Friday, I should say, we'll be getting brand new episodes, and I will be reviewing this show every week on this channel, so hit that reminder so you don't miss any of those videos. But I was a big fan of season 1. I love how Emily wasn't one to be in a box. She didn't want to just be a housewife, cooking food, having babies. She wanted to be a poet, and seeing her character's arc where, we meet her best friend, Sue, who she's in love with, but Sue ends up marrying her brother, Austin. She falls in love with Ben, and we know what happens to him at the end of last season. But I just love how she finally had the courage to tell her dad that she wants to be a poet. And here we are discussing season 2. So the way I want to handle this review, I assume if you're watching this video that you've probably seen the first season and you're excited for season 2 and you probably plan on watching it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into each one of the episodes, going over, kind of recapping and breaking it down, kind of giving you my thoughts, but mild spoilers kind of describing the episode and kind of the character moments. So again, check out episode 1, 2, and 3. It will be some mild spoilers, and let's just have a great discussion about it. So starting off with episode 1, which was titled Before I Got My Eye Poked Out. Emily's insular poetic world is rocked when Sue introduces her to Sam Bowles, a newspaper editor with a strong interest in publishing women. Now, I believe this particular season takes place 9 months after season 1. We're in 1859, and right off the bat, we see that Emily is definitely embracing the isolation of being consumed in her work. With her being so into her work and being a poet, we see that she's writing a ton of letters to Sue, who we'll talk about here in a bit. But in doing so much writing and poems, she's starting to kind of lose her eyesight. She goes to visit a doctor. She says that, hey, you can't go outside and, avoid the sun, but also avoid writing and writing in its entirety. So we obviously know Emily's not going to be about that life. She wants to continue to write. She even wants to write about a fact that she's going blind. We know she's so poetic when it comes to things that are going on in her life, but that's something to definitely keep an eye out for, is those eyes. Emily losing her vision. We'll see what comes of that. But in this first episode, we also meet a couple new characters this season, one being this kind of spirit character by the name of Nobody. Now, again, we learn more about the character in episode 2 and 3, but in this first episode, we clearly see that it's a spirit that's haunting her. We know Emily has this kind of death chases her, especially with Wiz Khalifa's character last week, or I should say last season. So we meet this Nobody character, again, foreshadowing some things later on in episode 2 and 3. But we also meet some new characters in regards to alive and human, no ghost characters here, one being Ship. Now, Ship is essentially a replacement of the Joseph character that was the person that Lavidia hooked up with last season. But we see that, speaking of Lavidia, we see that she's in a different place now. She doesn't want to be put in a box like her sister didn't want to last year. She doesn't want to be a housewife. She wants to, meet other people, get around. She meets Ship, who was a college dropout. He knows Austin, but knowing Ship and kind of getting to know him in this first episode in particular, he seems to be a moocher. He seems to have these plans of being rich, but he's living with the Dickinsons now. He has all these plans to marry Lavidia. We'll see what comes of this character. I'll talk about him a little bit later, but he's a new character, but also just kind of catching up with, speaking of just characters in general, catching up with our old characters, one being a big character, which is Sue. We see that she is definitely kind of more embracing the finer things in life. She is, she has this house with Austin. They have paintings all over the house. She has new clothes. She's even considered to be an influencer, which I love that this season is kind of really implementing things in our real world in today's society in regards to how people perceive people on Instagram being influencers, and then they're famous and they're popular. So we see that with Sue, but we also still get to see some of of the characteristics of Sue being more than an influencer. We learn when she talks to Emily that she had a loss. She did suffer a miscarriage, and she hasn't even told Austin, which will be interesting to see what comes of their relationship this season. But, we still see that Sue's a nice person, but she's definitely kind of more jaded with this new lifestyle, having money, because we know from season 1, she really didn't come from money at all. So it was good to catch up with her. But again, another new character that we meet in this particular episode is Finn Jones' character, which is Sam Bowles. He is this new editor in town, or say in Springfield, and everyone wants to hang out with him. Everyone wants to know what he's up to because he's the big hotshot. He's an influencer himself. So we see Sue sets up a meeting for Sam to meet Emily because Sue wants Emily to put her work out there so she doesn't become a nobody, which we'll talk about in further episodes. But nonetheless, I thought this first episode was pretty fun. It reminds me of why I love this show. It's hip to the new things that are going on in our society, but also plays into the norms and all the stuff that went down in the 1800s. We end the episode with a really cool party hosted by Sue and Austin, and we catch up with other characters like Jane and her friends, and we learn that Jane just had a baby and her husband died. So again, being brought back into this fun world is always a good time, and I really enjoyed the first episode, which brings me on to episode 2, which was titled Fame is a Fickle Food. Her participation in an Elmhurst baking contest gives Emily a taste of fame and celebrity, but she questions the benefits. Now, this episode was really fun. We see that the town people are going to attend this cattle show, which is essentially showing all the new technologies and new inventions in town, but also there is a baking competition that we see Emily gets herself into. And in this baking competition, I won't say if she won or not, but again, if you saw the episode, you know what happens. But let's just say things turn out good for Emily in this baking competition and her becoming this nobody, because again, we see the spirit again in this episode, but she's now getting a little bit of a reputation, but not for the things that she wants to be known for, which is a great poet. But now the town is like, oh, you're a great baker, and she gets her name in the paper, but she's starting to realize like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm getting a little bit of recognition, I'm getting some fame, but it's not for what I want to be known for. And we see even Sue brings that up, and also the new character Sam Bowles, like, oh, do you really want to be known for the baker of the town? So again, it just plays into this idea that little by little, Emily's putting herself out there. She's injecting herself in the community. She wants to get in this baking competition. She has her name in the newspaper. So she's starting to get a taste of that fame, but does Emily really want that fame? And again, that speaks to the ghostly figure of nobody, of like, don't buy into the fame. Don't consume yourself with the fame because it could take you over. Your name, you might have 15 minutes of fame now, but what did you have to sacrifice to kind of put yourself out there? You're really not being authentic to who you really are. So again, we're seeing Emily kind of balancing this act of like, do I put myself out there, or do I put my work out there? Should I take this fame of being a baker? And seeing her kind of battle that, but at the same time meeting this Sam character, Sam Bowles, who we, there's definitely something there with Sam, again, played by Finn Jones. He seems to have a very good, interesting take on Emily. He really pushes her to really put her work out there. So that's definitely someone to keep an eye out there for in regards to future episodes. But also within this episode, we meet some other new characters, Anna and Clara, who are the new inheritances of the Dickinson family. They're their cousins. Their dad passed away. So we have these two little kids who I wonder how much they're going to play into this season. But right off the bat, we know that Emily's mom is not a fan of these two little girls, and they kind of messed up her night that she was hoping to have with her husband on this cattle show night. So episode 2 was a lot of fun. Again, it plays into this idea of what we're going to see with Emily this season, which is, do I put myself out there, or do I keep my personal work, my personal poems to myself and not be famous, not be an influencer like some of my friends are pushing me to do? So definitely something to keep an eye out for, as well as this Sam Bowles character. Now, moving on to episode 3, which was titled The Only Ghost I've Ever Saw. Torn about whether to allow Sam to publish her work, Emily hosts a seance in search for guidance. Now, this episode, as the title alludes to, there is a seance that takes place in this episode, and we see that Sam wants Emily to put herself out there. He wants her to speak the words that she writes down and let the people know what she's writing, and also become a influencer like everyone else in town wants her to be. And we see that Emily, she doesn't know the answers. answers. You know, Sue is busy being a wife, and, you know, her sister is dealing with this ship character and not really having that much advice for her. So she's seeking guidance from the spirits, and that's where the seance takes place. Now, something that I want to keep an eye out for as well as the show, we get all of our main plots and main characters, but we have this Henry character, and we know that Henry is an anonymous writer, as we find out in this episode, for the newspaper because he wants to speak his voice about slavery. And I'm going to keep an eye on that storyline to see if it's something that the creators and the writers bring up throughout the season, or if it's just something they're going to throw away, because obviously the connection to Henry and Emily is they're both anonymous poets, right? They're both anonymous. They don't put their name to their work in the newspaper. So again, I can appreciate what they're doing with this character, being a black character, being that it's 1800s, being that it's still slavery going on. But I hope it's not a throwaway subplot. And they really do kind of, you know, I know Henry's not going to be a main character, but I would like to see a resolution to that character in regards to him putting himself out there and speaking up for slavery and stuff that was going on during that time. But moving forward, we get this seance. We meet another character, Hattie, who leads the seance, and they have all the crazy stuff going on. We see Jane and all, you know, Emily and Lavidia speaking out their spiritual problems, and we get this funny moment of the music playing and all this stuff. But Emily speaks to the spirits in regards to, do I pursue my actual fame? Do I put my poems out there for people to read and enjoy? She has her last, well, I assume her last encounter with the nobody, as we see him dies, and tells her don't do it. But Emily decides to move forward. She wants to put her poems out there. She wants to have her voice be heard. We see that she agrees to meet with Sam and says that, yes, go ahead and put my poems in your newspaper. But then you would think that Sam would be really happy about it. He seemed to be really pushing her in the first 2 episodes, but he kind of puts Emily aside and says, you know, I'll put it on my pile and I'll get to it. We also find out, I should say, in episode 2 that he is married. So I don't know if this whole Emily and Sam being a thing will be something to look forward to, or we know what this show does, you know, maybe Sam's wife will get sick and just die. But it'll be interesting to see if that is a potential love story or a love triangle in the future episodes. Sam, his wife, and Emily, if he really likes her, or he's just using her just to have, you know, a famous person in his newspaper. So something to keep an eye out for nonetheless. But again, she put herself out there. She wants this, you know, the process to take place, and we'll see if we'll see Emily's poems be posted in the newspaper with her name being attached to those poems. So nonetheless, in regards to these first 3 episodes, I have a fun time in this world. I love these characters. I'm really intrigued to see what comes of Emily. Again, her blindness, her poems being in the newspaper with her name attached to it, but also in regards to our other surrounding characters. We don't really get that much from Austin. We see that he's a partner with his dad's firm, and, you know, we'll see what comes of him. He wants a family with Sue, and obviously, like I mentioned in episode 1, Sue suffered a loss in losing her child. So we'll see what comes of their relationship, which, speaking of Sue, she's been kind of put on the back burner in the first 3 episodes. Her main goal right now is to push Emily to put her poems in the newspaper. But besides that, she's just really kind of conformed into the time that she's in. She's just a house. She's, you know, not using her husband, using Austin, but she's just, buy me a horse, buy me clothes. So she's kind of really kind of fitting into the mold that people put her in. So it'll be interesting to see if she kind of breaks out of that. And, you know, we'll see what happens with her and Austin having a kid. And then the other characters, Lavidia, she doesn't want to be put in the box, and we'll see what comes of the ship character. The mom is always fun to me, Emily's mom. The dad's just kind of been in the background. And then also the ship character. I don't know what to come of this character. I don't know where George is. I don't know if we'll get Joseph again, but he's okay. And speaking of okay, Finn Jones, he's okay. He's an okay actor. I liked him in Game of Thrones. I didn't like him in Iron Fist. And in this season, he's playing the character well in regards to this kind of cocky new hotshot news reporter or editor. And we'll see what comes of him. But he didn't blow me out of the water. We'll see what comes of that character, and if he will, you know, again, pursue Emily, just use her for fame, and see what comes of his wife. But those kind of secondary characters didn't really wow me like some of the first season characters did, like George and like Joseph and stuff like that. So nonetheless, I enjoyed the first 3 episodes. Like I said up top, I will be bringing you all reviews every single week for the rest of this season. But I want to know what you all thought of the first 3 episodes of Dickinson. Let me know your pros, your cons, what you hope to see in the weeks ahead, and let's have a discussion about it in the comments below. As always, make sure to like, share, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of my other content. Like I said, I will be reviewing this every single Friday, which, speaking of Friday, next Friday we have Servant Season 2, which I will be reviewing, as well as WandaVision. So we got a lot of great content coming to you all here from Movie Files. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.